Hello there, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you are. It's me, Addison, your favourite friendly furbog who hangs around the internet and talks about all things nerdy. And we are continuing with the Pod of Many Things Command Fest online this month of August. And today I have my guest today is Lunch or Lunchbox. Lunch, how about you introduce yourself, talk about yourself, where we can find you, and then let's get into it.
Yeah, how's it going, everybody? My name is Lunchbox. I am a Twitch streamer. I do variety streaming over on twitch.tv/lunchbox_13. That's Lunchbox spelled with a 0. There's so many Lunchboxes out there, oddly enough. I do a variety of different games. I mainly focus on stuff like From Software. I've been really into Elden Ring lately. I play Magic the Gathering as well, specifically just Commander. And I'm also huge on Nintendo and that sort of thing. So you can find me playing Ocarina of Time, Breath of the Wild, Kirby games, Mario games, any sort of thing that just tickles my fancy. And yeah, I just hang out on Twitch. I make a little bit of content here and there on TikTok. I'm somewhat active in the Magic Twitter space, just interacting with people, mostly lurking on Twitter. But yep, most active on Twitch, so you can find me there. And yeah, I'm just here to talk and hang out and have a good time.
Thank you for coming on. I do really appreciate it. I know that time difference has made it a bit of a piss take, but I do appreciate
it. Yeah, no
time.
problem.
So we'll do a couple of questions first, like about how you got started into Magic and like your favorite, what is your favorite commander at the minute and stuff like that. We'll do like the basic bog standard questions before we get into our topic today, which is a concept called pet decks, which I've kind of heard of. But I think you're going to help me understand it a bit more and why people have those attachments. So the first thing I'm going to ask you is, when did you get started into Magic?
So I started back in Magic, I think it was back around 2014. There was a local card shop that was just opening up back in my hometown. I've moved since then, and that card shop has unfortunately closed. But I walked in, I was picking up the D&D 5th edition starter pack, and just wanting to get into D&D a little more. It was right in my foray of starting playing Dungeons and Dragons. And I walked in, I saw people were playing Magic the Gathering. I had been like, hey, I've heard of this. I've seen people at high school who have played it here and there, and I want to learn. So it was right at the end of the original Theros block, Journey into Nyx, and I just was like, hey, I really want to learn Magic. And one of the workers was like, cool, pick a deck and I'll teach you. And I went to the wall, picked out the Journey to Nyx Black-White Enchantments Precon, and learned from there, and have just loved the game since. I took a little bit of a break between Amonkhet and the Midnight Hunt sets, strictly because the card shop closed down around that time, so I just didn't really have a good way to get multiple cards at the time. But other than that, I've been playing on and off since then. Before Spell Table really got a thing during the pandemic, I played on Snapchat video call with my best friend who I taught how to play. So it's really been an important part of my life, and now I'm playing it regularly, making content about it, branching into competitive EDH. It's something I'm getting into recently, and yeah, just been playing for quite a long time. It's been real good.
I think I would have got into it around the same time, because I actually got into it, and this is the funniest thing, is I got into it because we were playing it on Xbox Live. I think we were playing Duels of the Planeswalkers on Xbox Live, and
that came out around that time.
And you could get like the free 30 card deck by going into your shop with like a photo of your like Xbox. Like it like came up with a code that you had to take a photo of. So I remember going in and getting those. I remember getting like the old deck builder set after like playing that online for so long, like because we used to play for hours. Me and like my usual like COD lobby with like Halo lobby would just play like Magic the Gathering, play like art, because that also introduced things like Arch Enemy and stuff. Like so I was like, we'd play like Arch Enemy, we'd play like 4-way. I think we played Two-Headed
Giant got kind of big around that time too. Before it ultimately died out, sadly.
Yeah.
That was also the time like Tiny Leaders was really getting into foray, especially with Cons Block, with a lot of like 3 mana legendaries that were really good getting printed around then, stuff like Alesha, because that was right around Cons Block, and Tiny Leaders had its full on heyday around then, and sadly that format has died out as well.
Yeah, because I remember Khan was a thing, because I think he
Mhm.
features in the Jewel of Planeswalkers like story. There's like a thing
Yeah.
about him, and then I remember also that's around the time that the original Innistrad block, like a year or two after that, the original Innistrad
Yeah.
block introduced the idea of flip cards and the flip werewolves, and like me and my buddy were like insanely, like he was like vampires all the way, I was like werewolves all the way, so it was just like
Mhm.
what, like this is gonna be dope because they get to fight like all the time. And then
Mhm.
it kind of like we kind of like went our separate ways and started like not playing as much. And like
Yeah.
as soon as Innistrad kind of like went, I do have this thing, I will admit, like Innistrad comes along, I'm like, yo, I'm here. And then as soon as Innistrad leaves, I'm like, yo, I'm out. Like it
Yeah.
was good seeing you all. I'll see you in like 5 years when they go back because they need goth eldritch things. Cool, bye. Like, so yeah, I have loved Magic for a while, but I do dive in and out because I do, again, as having ASD, I like fixate on things. So I'm like,
Yeah.
I get into things, I'm like, yeah, and then I go, like there's something else though, and I can't afford both, so I like jump and hit. So yeah, my other question to you is, what commander are you playing at the minute? That's like my bog standard question.
So I've got a couple commanders that I've got right now. A couple, like, me and my partner split our whole collection in our decks. So she actually has a couple more built that she's been cycling through than I do. I just kind of have 3 main ones that I've been playing at the moment. One of them is a deck we're going to be getting more into today. It's going to be Daxos the Returned. My light. Hold on. Daxos the Returned. He is a 3 mana enchantment value commander, also in black white, also from Theros. So you can see where this is going already, and that's going to be a deck we'll talk about a little more. And then black white's a really good, really favorite color scheme of mine. Another one is Jund, which is red, black, green, and I actually run Rayhan and Tana +1/+1 counters, a Jund deck with that, and there's like infinite mana, infinite damage, infinite mill shenanigans in it because of persist loops,
Yeah.
which are a ton of fun. I really enjoy +1/+1 counters and just the shenanigans you can get from that.
Mm-hmm.
And then my other of my 3 main decks, I have 2 others. I've got a Mardu Warriors deck and then a Mono Red Goblins deck that are kind of on the lower power, but my shop and my personal play group tends to play a little bit more on the high power level of things. So the main 3 decks I have are that level. And then the third one is actually going to be Toxrill the Corrosive Board Wipe Tribal.
Oof.
And this one was actually built as like a precaution, and like if people are shitty at this new card shop that I'm going to, because I started going to a new card shop when I got back into the game a couple months ago with Midnight Hunt coming out, and I was just like, hey, getting into it, I want to make sure I have a deck that can stand up against oppressive players and shitty people. So I built Board Wipe Tribal, and it's so unfun to play and so unfun to play against. Recently, like a couple times ago when I played this, I actually got Toxrill out on turn 2 and no one was able to shut it down, and I just kind of ran away with the game that time. So
that sounds awful. That sounds, because
it's absurdly oppressive.
I also think, because like with oppressive decks like that, in any card game, let alone Magic, which is like heavily resource based with mana, I can imagine that like that's not fun to pilot either, because you kind of just look at it and you kind of go, oh, I've won now. I'm cool. So yeah. Because I feel that way about so at the minute I'm mainly building, because one of the reasons why I'm doing this whole Command Fest is because of the fact that I'm learning Commander. Like I've always played Modern and Standard. Standard Spenny though, like I haven't got the books for. So admittedly, Commander seems a bit more fair because you can just basically put anything you've got in your Commander deck. So I'm like, I've got this. Let's put it in there. So yeah, that's fun, and that's one of the reasons. And I kind of like the more social aspect of Commander. So the commanders that I'm hoping to look into is, my main goal is to complete my Volo Guide to Monsters commander deck because I just want to clone lots of things, and I look somebody in the eye as I go, I swing at you with 30 monsters, like, because I've managed to do that on Arena a couple of times and it is so good. However, I am aware that there's a massive like misfire rate on it, because if I can't get Volo out quickly enough, or if somebody's just like, yo, I play black, so that Volo keeps going back like to your command zone, I'm like, I also want to play Catilda, the Daughter of the Dawnheart guide. I can't remember what her full name is, and she's not out at the minute. I don't think
it's the green white Catilda, right? Or is that the mono white?
No, green white Catilda.
Okay.
The one that's got protection from werewolves and everything. So I want to play her, and then I am building, which would probably be my equivalent to a pet deck, Tovalar Dire Overlord, because finally we have a decent werewolf commander. Because admittedly, when I did want to get into commander with werewolves, like Ulrich of the Krellin Horde was like the only decent one. It was like, play Huntsman of the Fells. I'm like, no, because one, it's really expensive, and two, it doesn't actually do a lot. Like, I don't understand why everybody who plays werewolves is obsessed with that card, because it's not that good. Like, when you compare it to like Krellin and especially Tovalar with his ability to like transform everything. Like, so yeah, and then I've recently just bought, and I've unboxed this as part of the opening ceremony, my Quantum Quandrix deck, which is basically
that's the cloning one, right? Adrix and Nev.
Yeah,
that one's sweet. That's got a ton of cool tech in it. I really like that deck.
Well, that's
Witherbloom.
Sorry, you go first.
I was going to say Strixhaven. I meant to say Strixhaven over Witherbloom. We got the Witherbloom deck, and we have slowly converted it into a Guillaume food tokens deck. But Strixhaven just had some really, really sweet precons. Precons are a great way to get into the game. I mean, I buy precons all the time. I bought my very first commander deck was the Daxus, the Return precon, and then the next year I bought all of the 4-color precons, and then I got the Witherbloom one, and then recently with New Capenna, me and my playgroup all got all of the precons for that, and we completely stayed away from those during the spoiler season. All pulled out, sleeved up a precon of our choice of the different colors, made sure each person had a different family, and just played them out a couple times, and it was honestly a blast. It was so much fun, just because how good precons are. They're so fun to play, and they're built to play against each other, and it's really, really well done.
I think that some of them are really good out of the box, and one of the things with Quantum Quandrix was the fact that because it has that clone mechanic, like Volo has, I can then put all like my shapeshifters and stuff that I'm putting together for the Volo deck into that deck, and then be like, yo, and just go for it through there. Like I've got Mirror Box coming as well, which will be fun to like throw down. So yeah, legendary doesn't apply to me, so say hello to all my legendary friends. Like
is Mirror Box the original Kamigawa one, or is that the Neon Dynasty one?
Neon Dynasty one. So it's Mirror. I think it's Mirror Hall is the original
Mirror Gallery
one. Or Mirror Gallery, yeah. Which is basically just Legend Rule doesn't apply, but the new one has like Legend Rule doesn't apply. Cards with the same name as each other get +1/+1. Like,
gotcha.
So like there's like a lot more to it. It will literally be the thing that everybody tries to blow up first. As soon as I put it down, so I've got to be really. But yeah, so and I'm also, just as I was speaking to you off air, I am going to try and build a mono blue Jace, Vryn's Prodigy, Flipwalker deck to try and like use him, because I've got him in the emblem, and just I like Jace. Like a lot of people are like, oh, he's like the most boring emo edgelord guy, and I'm like, he's kind of cool. Like he does some cool shit like throughout the whole of the lore. So yeah. As we're on the thing of, as we've talked about precons, I am actually looking to get some more eventually. I've saved up a bit of money. I'm like putting away like a couple of pounds every now and then. I'm kind of stuck at the minute, because I look at the Riveters Rampage Jund deck. I play a similar deck on Magic Arena Standard. With like, my friends call it my punchy lesbian deck, because it's got like pro face breaker, Jaxis and everybody
Oh,
in it.
love
Yeah.
it.
So like they call it my punchy lesbian deck because I just play all these like buff women and then buff them
Love
up
it.
and do crazy shit with them.
It's awesome.
I've got I am also trying to have a look at Vrondis because obviously with werewolves I'm a Gruul fanboy, and eventually what I want to do with these precons is turn them into the decks that I want, that use them as the basis, because like they have the things I need. I just need to like get them out there, and like for like with the Quantum Condrix one I can just put all my Volos in there, because I've also got the I've got both Volos, so I've got the Commander one that I want, which is green blue, and then I've got the blue one that allows me to draw cards, so I'm like, yes, Volo supremacy. But yeah, no.
Yeah.
What is there any other precons that you'd recommend? Like
For werewolves, actually, I don't know if I would fully recommend the Verondis deck, just because it's so heavy on dragons and punching with dragons that way. There's good punch stuff. There's good red cards in there and good green cards, but honestly, I don't really know of a good red green deck precon that exists for specifically werewolves. It's probably the best bet is the Verondis one, since it's one of the very few, but it's not going to have a ton of tech. I've heard whisperings that the AFR Commander Legend decks are pretty sweet, and I've seen some of like the staples that are in the white-black one, because I like white-black, and there's some pretty cool cards in there. There's some neat stuff in those ones, so anything recent is just a great thing to pick up. I don't think was there a red-green deck for Commander Legends
yeah,
too?
it was Exit from Exile. Exit from Exile or Path from Exile or something.
Yeah, Exit from Exile, I think. That one has some pretty good too. So either of those would probably just be a good buy, or even both if able. And that would get you some really good medium power, some high power stuff. I think there's a Jessica's Will in the new red-green one, and that card is bonkers. That card's absurd.
It's so dumb. Like I watch a lot of like tabletop jocks and like Command Zone and stuff like that, and you just watch them bust out Jessica's Will, and they're like, "Yeah, I now have like 19 mana." I'm like, "What the fuck? Like how?" Like, because I've got 19 cards in hand. I'm like, "Have you got 9? What?" Like, you're just there, kind of like, and then you forget like, oh, he's had Rhystic Study and like loads of stuff for it this whole time. Like, so yeah. So today, what we're specifically talking about, me and you, Lunch, is we're talking about pet decks, which is a concept that I kind of know about, but I'm never really like dove into. So I'd like you to like, could you possibly explain for the people what a pet deck is and
of course,
why we're talking about it?
So to me, pet decks are decks that are more important than just, oh, this is a cool deck and I like how it plays. It's a little more than that. It's something like you're connected to on a higher level. It's something you really put a lot of care into. It's a archetype that you thoroughly enjoy. It's your favorite archetype from anything, no matter how good or bad it is at the current meta. It's just something you stick with and have always played or will always play. And for me, that's white-black enchantments, because my very first pre-con 60 card deck was the Journey to Nyx white-black enchantments deck.
Yeah.
And my very first commander deck was this Daxos the Return deck that I have kept this shell put together since I picked it up. I've added a couple cards. I added a couple cards here and there when I first got it, because I came into possession of some older cards. Like I put the Rune of Protection Cycle in there. All 5 of those normal ones are in there. I don't have Rune of Protection Shadow, Rune of Protection Artifacts, or anything like that. Just the regular colors, because they've got cycling as well, so I can just put them away for card draw. I put an Armageddon in there because like it blows up lands. That seems pretty good. And I was a kid at the time. I was just like, yeah, it seems cool. And I didn't realize how salty it was, and it's still in the deck, so I'm not taking it out. No. And then when I got back into it, I was like, hey, I still have this awesome deck, and I made even more edits to it. I put a cycle of Oblivion Rings in there and made it kind of enchantment control. And then when I really was getting into Commander recently, I was like, wait, Stacks is a thing. Let's make it a Stacks deck. And it's still enchantments value. So yeah, it's just something that I've kept and built for a long time. I'm never taking this deck apart. I've even got a commission going where those shadow box things where artists will take a bunch of the same card and cut out different layers and like make it 3D. I've got one of those coming for Daxos that will also keep track of experience counters. So, and then I've got the custom sleeves with my character on it, drawn by one of the mods in my Twitch chat, and he was also a very close personal friend. So there's so much about this deck that's more than just like, oh, it's just a generic white-black stacks decks with a subpar commander. Like, I'm even turning this... I've even got a CDH version of this list that I'm getting into CDH with.
That's dope. It's
though. Just... I don't care that he's not tier 1 on the deck list database. I like Daxos. I like Enchantress. I'm playing Daxos and CDH, whether you like it or not, and I have that list chock full of the best stacks pieces, and it's been so much fun, and I've really tooled it over the years, and it's just a blast. I'm never going to give up, and people know me at the shop as a stacks player, and I don't care. I will always play this deck, no matter how good or bad it is in the current meta, and we'll have an awesome time with it.
For those people who don't know, what does it? Because obviously, one of the things that I found getting back into Magic was that there's a lot of terminology that I don't know. Like I was like, I know what the color combinations are. Like I know what a wedge color combination means, etc., etc. But I don't. So what does stacks mean?
So Stacks is actually based off of a card that's actually not in this deck called Smokestacks. It's a artifact from the original Urza's, I think it's Urza's Saga with the 2 gears. And at the beginning of your upkeep, you put a soot counter on it. And then during your upkeep, during each player's upkeep, that player sacrifices permanents equal to the number of soot counters that are on that card. I actually run that in my board wipe tribal deck, but not my actual stacks deck, just because that one's such a feels bad and you'd have to get rid of your own stacks pieces for it. But what it is it's massive resource denial and basically controlling what your opponents are allowed to do. It taxes them very heavily. It makes them so they can only do a certain amount of things per time. Stuff like Wandering Archaic from Strixhaven. Whenever an opponent casts an instant or sorcery, they may pay 2 generic. If they don't, you copy it. So like, hey, you can play that, but I get it too. Or stuff like Fate Unraveler that actually came in the pre-con. It's an enchantment creature from, I think it's Born of the Gods was the set it was from. It's also from the Theros block. Whenever an opponent draws a card, Fate Unraveler deals 1 damage to that player. So, like, yeah, you can draw cards, but you gotta pay for it. And, like, yeah, people already pay damage for cards anyway, but, like, so let's say someone's on wheels and you've got a Fate Unraveler out. That's a great combo. And it's like, oh, do I really want to cast this wheel and pitch my hand for a brand new hand? And stuff like that. And then there's, like, stuff like Eidolon or Rhetoric. Each player can't cast more than 1 spell each turn. Let me try and find one of my personal favorite stacks pieces that I've got in here. It's actually not an enchantment, oddly enough, but it's an artifact. Let's see here. There we go. So it's a card that called Trinisphere. If you have any knowledge of stacks stuff, you may have heard of this card. It's a 3-mana artifact, and as long as Trinisphere is untapped, each spell that would cost less than 3 mana costs 3 mana to cast. So let's say I wanted to play my Soul Ring, which is normally 1 mana artifact, tap it, add 2 colors to your mana pool. You would have to pay 3 mana for that Soul Ring instead of 1. So it makes cheap, fast mana and fast spells like that infinitely worse and more difficult to cast.
Mana Rock now pretty much become like a losing, you have no profit from a Mana Rock now, because you're like, right, I'm going to play my Soul Ring for 3 mana, but I'm only going to get 2 out of it. And then, like, because of the fact that also as well, that those cheap things that you're hoping to get out with those Mana Rocks, are now always a free. Like, you've not got that free floating stuff that you usually have. So that's really oppressive. And, like, I quite liked your thing about the connection to a pet deck. I like that thing. So I will speak forever about werewolves. So this is my modern deck. This is my modern werewolf deck that has things from both Innistrad, Shadows over Innistrad, Dark Ascension, I think is the weird one.
Yeah, Dark Ascension.
Dark Ascension, and basically it's all the cards. Admittedly, I am apparently a psychopath when it comes to deck building, because I believe, I don't know if it's because of my thing with Yu-Gi-Oh, because I like more variety, but like a play set to me is still 3 cards. Like I will always put like 3 of a card in rather than 4, because then I can put like another set of 3 of another card in that I think adds to the combo, so like I get more variety. Whereas like,
exactly,
my friends are like, that's why you tapped. So like, and like the card that I actually love out of all of these, and it's gonna sound stupid, is, and it will forever be like my favorite card in Magic, is a land card called Kessig Wolf Run.
That's a solid card. Yeah,
Crescent
I love
Wolf
that
Run
card.
looks amazing, if I can get it to work. Looks amazing, has a great name. Like, it's what my deck is called on Magic Arena. My werewolf deck is called Kessig Wolf Run. And add 1 mana, so just add 1 of any mana. But it's the Gruul effect that's good. So X fire 1 red, 1 green, X amount of mana, and tap this. Target creature gets plus X plus 0 and gains trample till the end of the turn. So basically you make your werewolves like ridiculously like thing, like just I'm not going to play anything today, I'm just going to make it so they all do trample and they all beat down, because Gruul Stompy Boys are Gruul Stompy Boys, unfortunately. But yeah, that's my pet deck, is like werewolves, hence why I'm trying to make the Tovolar. Admittedly, I might steal, the only thing I've realised is I say that thing about the free playset, but I've got 4 of Immerwolf in here, and I might take 1 of them out, and
just so you can fit in a third of another thing,
or so I can put in like something like, I don't know, is it Sage of Ancient Lore, the one that's the werewolf that's its power and toughness are determined by the amount of cards in your hand, but when it transforms, it's about
that
all.
Sounds right.
It's all of you. So like in a commander game, that's awful. Like, especially if you've got someone who runs card draw, because they're just there like, I keep making this thing bigger, because I'm like sat there with an Immer Wolf next to it, like, oh yeah, he's not transforming back, by the way, so you cast all the spells you want, my guy, like, go for it, like, cool, thanks, love you, bye. Like, but yeah, no, it's just I like that connection thing. So my question to you about that connection, almost like precondition to making something your pet deck, is what forms that connection? Like, so what is it that brings about that connection? You said about an archetype that you're passionate about or something like that, but what makes somebody go, you know what, this is me? Like, what made me a werewolf player? What's made you a Stacks player and love that artifact deck?
I think it's different for everybody. For me, it's mostly just because Enchantments was the first deck that I played. It's what I learned on, it's how I learned how to play the game, and it's what I played for the longest time until I eventually took that original precon apart and tried new decks, because that's what every player does. And then I got the precon and was like, hey, this is like right when I started, and there's cards in the deck that were in that original precon. Like, in the original version of this commander deck, right out of the box, it had some of the same cards and strategies that were in the precon that I bought it was, I'd say all those years ago, but literally it was like 2 years after I was playing that I got the precon, was just getting into Commander, because it's a C15. I started like in like 2013, 2014 with Journey to Nyx. So
yeah, it's
just something that it's very different. I meant to ask some of the players at my local shop, but I unfortunately wasn't able to. But it's different for everybody. It's just a matter of self-expression, and if there's an archetype you really like and a character that really drives that you connect to, that can be it. I really like Daxos' story as well. His whole story throughout the Theros block is very, very compelling, and his relationship with Elspeth. God, I don't know why I forgot her name real quickly. And just growth from that and turning the pain that both of them had to go through. It's just a very interesting story that you just can't help but feel bad for the guy. So in his lowest point, which is when he was a return to just completely lost and barren, searching for anything that was like his life beforehand. It's heart-wrenching, but also just, you can't help but like him.
Yeah.
So
I feel that way about, like, I don't feel that way about Tovola, although I do like him as like an antagonist for the Innistrad plane.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I love Tovola as like the antithesis to Arlen. Like, I love Arlen. My playmate, just to let you, is Arlen, the D Suzuki like art from War of the Spark.
Oh yeah.
Like, Arlen is like my favorite character because she's like the archetype that I write as well. So we call them Suffering Maidens, the Suffering Maiden archetype, because of the fact that obviously she's like this religious, pious person who's got like this werewolf inside her and is like fiercely loyal. And like, just that story in Midnight Hunt, like defending the Celestis and everything, was so good. And I think that, and her story before that even is so rich. And I think you hit the nail on the head there. Like, this, we love Magic not just for the mechanics of it and the game of it, but also like, this game has like lore, like real lore that is like,
it's extensive. It's insane how much lore there is in this game.
Yeah. And like,
that's something I wish I knew more about. I wish I was more of a Vorthos player.
Yeah.
Like some people are, but I just like, there's so much.
Yeah,
it's too much.
That's why I'm like, I'm gonna stick to Innistrad and know everything about Innistrad, and then maybe like dip my toe into like Mirrodin and Khan and the Phyrexian takeover and like Khan's revival, Venser, like Venser, like handsome Venser, bless his soul. Like I'm
rest in peace.
But yeah, no, like, I think you hit the nail on the head when you find a character that you resonate with in the story of this game, and like, it's very easy as just a casual player to just be like, yo, I don't care about that shit, give me the strong cards. And that's why I really wanted to talk about this with you, is because like, that emotional connection that you have to something that's really personal to you and you resonate with is like so cool, and like, I just want to dive into it, because that's one of the reasons why I like Jace as well, because I know Jace is like the protagonist, we're going to put him in air quotes, the protagonist of Magic, because he's like especially early Magic, like when the lore was really kicking off, because of in like the 2010s when we first started era, because like Naruto was a thing and like Sasuke was a thing, and like everybody loves Sasuke rather than Naruto, so like Jace is kind of edgy, like he can't like, and like he's got a hood that he puts on and covers his face with, why not, like, so he became but I love him as well. Like, I love the fact that like he is a bad dude at some points, like he is like kind of terrible, and you're like, oh my god, I'm supposed to root for him, like I'm and like he loses his memory and becomes a better person. You're kind of like, stay like this, Jace, stay like this, do not go back. And then he's like, oh no, I've got to go back. And you're like, Jace, no.
Yeah, right at the beginning of Jace's story, he was basically on Bolus's side. He was just mind-wiping anyone he came across, not wanting to help out. And then he was, I don't remember exactly, something happened between him and Tezzeret that he kind of became a little more lenient and joined the Gatewatch. And then eventually the Guild Pact, he became the Living Guild Pact. And then I wasn't playing during this point, so I don't know the exact specifics of it. I think it was during War of the Spark, lost his memory and ended up on Ixalan.
Yeah, he ended up in Ixalan. He's like a pirate with Vraska, isn't he? Like,
yeah, and then I think there's like the implication of him and Vraska falling in love, which is great. I love that. It's good for them. So yeah, it's just so many of these characters have such compelling, cool stories to follow that even the bad ones you can't help but root for. I love like the Phyrexians. I think they're so cool.
They're like the fan favorite. Like, like I feel like Phyrexia is like a cult, because everybody's just like, like, you're like, but they do terrible things. Like, they killed Khan. Khan like built a perfect place, and they destroyed it. And they're like, but they're the Phyrexians though, and we love them. Like, no, not my big golem daddy. No. Yeah.
And because Zendikar was so big when I had first gotten into it, I absolutely love Eldrazi as well. Eldrazi are super cool, and I also admittedly am a big fan of like Lovecraftian horror and that sort of thing. I was gonna say Shadows of Innistrad being the second set block that I ever got to play was, I admittedly am not the biggest fan of Innistrad, but the fact that the first time I personally went to Innistrad was Lovecraftian Horror, Shadows block, in my opinion, is my favorite of the Innistrad blocks, just because of the Embercool just doing whatever she wanted there and turning shit all tentacly. It was great. I thought that was one of the best Innistrad sets, just thematic wise.
Yeah, I love I kind of like it when blocks introduce new mechanics as well. So the fact that they also introduced like the clue mechanic, into that block, and like clues became, and it kind of reminded you of a Call of Cthulhu game. Like you were like kind of like, oh, this is like when you go like searching with your investigator in Call of Cthulhu. Like, so yeah, that was kind of dope. There's a really good werewolf defender that came out of that's like captive something, and it transforms into like an Eldrazi werewolf that's like ridiculous. It's so fun. But yeah, no, I completely agree that, like, because I also think we kind of touched on it a bit before, because I also think that the set you come in on also has like a strong, or the set that you like bond with is a strong component of most of your pet decks. Like, I look at my decks and I'm like, they're all Innistrad cards. Like, they're all Shadows over Innistrad, like Innistrad Dark Ascension, which is like Innistrad like and Avacyn and stuff like that. And like, it's just, do you find that as well, that like a lot of your is that emotional tie and nostalgia to those sets?
So I really, really like Theros because I joined right as it was ending. Granted, I was so new, so I didn't really get to do a bunch of Theros stuff. But the set immediately after that was Khans Tarkir block. And boy, howdy, do I love Tarkir. I cannot wait for us to go back there at some point. I was a hard Mardu player because it had white-black, and I was like, I think red's kind of cool too. And so I just picked up the Mardu precon, and just hard on Mardu. Warriors are so fun. Back in the day before I was really in Commander, when I was playing more at my card shop, I actually ended up building a mono black Warriors deck that ran a lot of the mono black Warriors, like a lot of the black Warriors from Dragons of Tarkir and Fate Reforged and that sort of thing. So I've opened hundreds of packs of Khans of Tarkir and that whole block. So Tarkir is probably one of my all-time favorite planes, just because it's right when I started, so it's everything I like. This is Magic. Give me all the Tarkir stuff, and Tarkir is probably my favorite plane. But Theros, because I just am a nerdy kid. I was a nerdy kid and loved Greek mythology. Theros has always been very cool as well. Yeah. So it's rough choice between those two.
I was introduced to Theros as a D&D setting. And then obviously realised it was a Magic setting, and realised that it was basically Greek gods, and like Percy Jackson, Heroes of Olympus. I read Lore Olympus now. Like I've always loved that sort of thing as well. So I'm with you there. Like, because I also find that like sometimes with my pet decks and stuff, like a mechanic is also, so one of my main mechanics is flipping. Like, I love, I'm again, for some reason my friends think I'm a psychopath when I go to like the card shop, because I actually take the cards out of their sleeves and flip them. They're like, why are you doing that? Why do you not have like a fifth one that's just transformed next to the board or something? I'm like, because you know, like I bought them so that I could flip them. That's like the main reason I got them. And I think like one of my friends has a devotion deck. Like his thing is like a devotion, like devotion to, I think it's devotion to blue, because I think it's Fessa. Like, Fassa, like,
she's real cool.
So his main thing is like Fassa and like getting her on the board and getting her online, and like I found that is really cool, and I like the way they brought that to D&D with the devotion to deities in as for your holy characters. So like you got boons as you went through like levels of devotion to your deity, which I thought was really cool.
I actually had no idea that was a D&D setting. Yeah. I hadn't. I've been out of D&D for a lot longer than I have been Magic. I actually just finished up session 2 with my play group last night for my first campaign back, and I'm DMing it, and 4 out of the 5 players have never played D&D before, and one of them has very limited experience. So we're doing original like Forgotten Realms, just literally just the starter kit that I picked up all those years ago. I found the PDFs again, and I'm running that campaign.
Yeah.
So it's been real fun so far, just getting a bunch of new players into it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had no idea Theros was a D&D setting. I know that there was the Strixhaven one,
Strixhaven,
they also did
Ravnica.
Oh, thank you. Magic Planes always slip my brain for some reason. I don't know why.
I have that as well, because like you mentioned Tarkir, and I was like, which one's Tarkir? I'm like, that's the dragons one, isn't it? That's the dragons one. I'm like, and I always remember planes via like the thematic of it. So like apart from obviously Innistrad, because that's my plane. That's like where I want to be. Like every time they're like, oh, it's in Dominaria, I'm like, oh, Earth Prime, like because Dominaria kind of in the lore is kind of like in DC.
It's like the whole world, basically.
It's like the first one, and if you control that one, you control all the others, and it's like, oh, that's why Darkseid keeps coming to our universe. I got you. Like, so yeah, like I always remember the theme. So yeah, so
it always sucks that
the guilds.
Go ahead.
Ravnica's the guilds. Like the Ravnica's where we get the idea of Gruul and shit. Now they're about to just go from my
Gruul, Celestia, Eldorius, is it Orzhov, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
It always sucks that whenever people think of Tarkir, they think of dragons, because the dragons were so bad. Like, the dragons were great, don't get me wrong, but lore-wise, they were horrible fascists, and the original theming of Tarkir with the Khans and the influence of, like, different Eastern Asian cultures is one of my favorite parts of it. How the Mardu are basically the Huns, the Jeskai, the Jeskai are basically the Shaolin and that sort of thing. And you just got all these different influences that come in is just so cool to me. And one of my favorite parts of Darkir, and that to be just erased by dragons is just like, it hurts, but at the same time, I agree the dragons are super cool, but in the lore, they were so shitty, so it's a very toss-up for me regarding that one.
I quite, I get that, and like, again, like, when you think of like, when you think of the lore and how deep it is, and it is kind of shitty that you look at like the planes and you kind of remember like Strixhaven magic school, when actually when you think about it, it's like it's the magic school. Like if you read the lore, like people come from every single plane to come and attend Strixhaven to learn magic at Strixhaven, because even if they're not planeswalkers, because it's that important, like, and you're just kind of there, like, you're just kind of there like, oh yeah, it's just Harry Potter with magic, cool, got you. Right? And then you've got things like Innistrad that gets reduced to werewolves versus vampires most of the time. It's Underworld in Magic the Gathering, which are banging films, have just come back on Netflix. I need to watch those. But yeah, no, I get that, and I think sorry.
Even Battle Bond has its own story to it, but people are just like, it's just a funny arena video game reference. But no, the story of Battle Bond is so cool, because it's just like all the most powerful fighters throughout the planes just get summoned to this Coliseum, and it's literally how classic Coliseums were. And I think the lore of Battle Bond is one of the most overlooked lore planes in existence. I don't know the name of the specific plane that arena is on, but I just know that it's like there's proper lore to Battle Bond that is really cool. And like some of the best sets for lore are draft format sets that don't have a lot of like recurring characters that we know. Like Battle Bond was cool because it had the Kenrith twins on it from I always forget that one too. Eldraine, that's the one. Had the Kenrith twins on there. So, and I feel like those specific ones are good. And Battlebond has some great cards in it. Don't get me wrong, but Conspiracy has such cool story as well. The Conspiracy set, I don't know the name of that plane either, but there's such cool lore for the Conspiracy. So lore is just very, very cool to see.
Mirrodin
for a different
and
plane.
Phyrexia as well, like Mirrodin being that thing that Khan created what he believed to be the perfect world to like satisfy his question of what is existence, and like that thing of like what happens when like the whole AI question, basically, like what happens when you give AI like perfection and like they work at perfection. something comes in and ruins it. It's pretty much the like Yawgmoth comes in and decides that we're gonna fuck things up today, like as well as the predators and everything. But like, it's just a new Capenna and the lore there. A lot of like the fact that this beautiful place was built by angels, and then the angels just kind of like that old religious like subtext of like, the angels just left, like, and now it's run by whoever come in, which funnily enough is always demons, isn't it? The devils and the demons and the warlock pack patrons come in, and the Cthulhu-esque people come in, and they're like, yo, this looks really nice, it'd be a shame if someone came and ruined it. And like that idea of like lore influencing the pet deck, like,
yes,
is so strong and so wonderful to me anyway. I don't know about you, what do you think?
Oh, that's fully agree. I mean, my plus one counters deck even goes back to my love for Tarkir. I mean, one of the cards I run for the commander, because I run partner commanders, is Anafen's the Foremost, who is from Tarkir. Not Anafen's the Foremost, that's the leader of Tarkir. It's Rayhan, last of the Abzan. I was thinking Abzan, I said Anafen's, I meant Rayhan. And so it's because I really loved plus one counters, which was the Abzan mechanic for Tarkir, despite me playing Mardu, because I just like plus one counters are neat, and just being able to implement your creatures to be bigger. It's part of why I've come to love green as well, and green just making big fighty boys is great. So yeah, it definitely has an influence on what you want your pet deck to be, whether it be a plane you like or a character you like, because even my partner has what I would consider her pet decks. The very first deck I built for her was Breya, and she did a deep dive on the lore on Breya. She loves her, and then came to love Liliana and was like, hey, can we do Liliana deck? And I was like, hey, Commander Collection Black just came out, let's get that. That's got the Liliana Flip Planeswalker in it. We'll build an Aristocrats list with that, and that's one of her favorites. And now she actually just put together a new list that she's going to be getting the cards for Olivia Crimson Bride, because my partner started right before Crimson Vow came out and immediately fell in love with Olivia. Just thought she was the baddest bitch on the block, and just has loved her. And she is, obviously. Yes, Olivia is. Well, I love Olivia as well. She's so cool. So yeah, she's got an Olivia list that she just put together and is really excited to get the cards for. And we own a good amount of the cards already, so it's not going to be too expensive for us to put that together for her. So yeah, she's just fully embraced the love for this game that I have of just cool characters. Like, I like this character, I want to build this, because despite how oppressive the deck is, I actually really like Toxtrol and want to learn more about the lore about him. Or her. I don't know any of the lore on Toxtrol, which I feel bad as a somewhat lore player. It just seems like an interesting character that I need to look into. So yes, lore and planes and characters definitely have a massive influence on what determines what your pet deck is, if you have one.
We are going to be talking to MTG Goth or MTG Goth about, because they are Vorthos connoisseur. Like, even in the recording that I had to cancel with them, it was so, because like just blew my mind, because I'm like, I know things, I feel, and then they were just like, oh yeah, you're wrong about that, and then just I'm like, so yeah, it is great. One of my things though is, we've talked a lot about like flavor, emotional memory, like sets and stuff like that we come into. Do you think that mechanics are something that affects the pet deck like connection? Because like, so we talked about clues earlier, like do you think, and my thing about flipping cards over, do you think that's, some people might actually just like a mechanic and go, this is what I like, so this is my pet deck? Because like, kind of stacks is a mechanic, but it's not like clues or food or like stuff like that. So what do you think about that?
I think if you really are dedicated to a mechanic, yes, it can be. I wouldn't personally actually call stacks a mechanic, as more of an archetype. If you wanted a proper like mechanic that you would want to put on this deck that I have, it's probably Constellation, actually, which cares about enchantments entering the battlefield under your control. And I've got quite a few Constellation cards in here. Like, there's a Johnny's Chosen, which doesn't have Constellation, but it has Constellation. It's like whenever an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you get a 2/2 cat. Or let me pull another one out of here.
It's like before the keyword was invented. Like
exactly
before the keyword was invented, like they've got that effect.
Mm-hmm.
Constellations Particles on MTG Arena is so cool because it does like the star thing that comes up. So yeah, that is dope. I do really enjoy that.
And like a big hitter for that, well, two big hitters for Constellation would be, where is it? Grim Guardian, which is a great card that I happen to have a foil of, and it's actually a combo piece in my CDH version of this deck. Because when it enters when it or an enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, each opponent loses 1 life. And then another one of the big Constellation hitters I have in this deck is actually the face card from the original precon, and this is actually that card. I still have kept that foil Doomwake Giant around from my very first deck. And what so Doomwake Giant... when Doomwake Giant has this Constellation effect trigger, everything gets -1/-... Everything your opponents control get -1/-1 until end of turn.
Ooh,
so let's see, you've got...
That's nasty.
Yeah, I've hit some pretty cool, like pretty stylish board wipes with it. Because I have a card in here that... it's a suspend card that, when it comes off suspend, returns all your enchantments from the graveyard to the battlefield. I'm blanking the name on it right now because, of course, cameras... Resurgent Belief, that's the one. And it's from Modern Horizons 2, so this is a relatively new addition to this deck. Yeah. And suspend 2 for 1 white, and when it comes to suspend, return all enchantment cards from your graveyard to the battlefield. And when you manipulate the stack, which is something I like doing, I like messing around with the stack and stuff like that because of just fun interaction in Commander. You really have the freedom to do that. You have Doomwake Giant enter first, and then you have the rest of your... you have the rest of your enchantments enter in and just get a ton of Doomwake Giant triggers and kill everybody. And then with Daxos, you can actually have even more of that because he makes tokens. That's his ability. I completely forgot to mention his ability. When you cast an enchantment, when you cast an enchantment, you get an experience counter. And then you can pay 1 white-black to make a star white and black enchantment creature spirit with this creature's power and toughness are equal to the number of experience counters you have. And that's this fella right here. So these also trigger Constellation. Well. It's such a good token. It's one of my favorites. And whenever I actually order from Card Kingdom, which is my preferred site, I actually always request, hey, if you guys are doing the custom tokens, can you please do a spirit token? And it's for this such and such thing. And they've always been like, hey, we're unable to do it or unable to fulfill the requests. But finally, just a couple days ago, when I finally got my proper copy of I got Drannith Magistrate, as well as what is it? So bad with this. It's not Monologue Text, it's the cheaper version of it. Smothering Tithe.
I was going to say, you were talking about Smothering Tithe, yeah. Yeah,
I got Smothering Tithe and Drannith Magistrate, as well as a couple of Johannes Voss cards from my partner, because she loves his art. I requested a token, as I always do, and they finally were able to bring in one, and it's a little sheet ghost with this candle, which is really fitting, because whenever I have to have multiple tokens, I actually use infinite tokens.
The
little tokens. And whenever I draw the spirit, I always draw a little sheet ghost. So I didn't even ask for it to be a sheet ghost, and it's just little sheet ghost, and I was just like, this is perfect. This is everything I wanted and more. So now I've got 2 really cool tokens that I can use for this deck. And so it's just really fun to just get a bunch of experience and then push out a bunch of just big tokens that you can give flying with, like not triplicate spirits. Which one is it? It's from Crimson Vow. It is...
I think I know the
Hallowed
Haunt.
Hallowed
Haunt allows you to triple any spirits that get made, like, ever.
Hallowed Haunting... Anointed Procession is the one that gets double tokens. That's also in here because it's an enchantment and it cares about tokens.
Yeah.
But Hallowed Haunting is 2 white from Crimson Vow for a enchantment. As long as you control 7 more enchantments, creatures you control have flying and vigilance. Very easy to do with this deck. Whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you get a white spirit cleric with this creature's power and toughness equal to the spirits you control. So there is a little bit of a spirits theme in this deck, but it mainly just focuses on enchantments.
That sounds awful, like, to play against anyway. Like, you're just going to watch as suddenly everything is unblockable.
Oh, yeah.
You're just
because, you play it, and you're like, oh, yeah, I tick my experience up to 11 and play Hallowed Haunting. Now everything flying and vigilance, crumble in for 44 damage, just kill you on the spot. So it's a blast. I love this deck so much. I play this deck more than any of my other decks just because it's so fun for me.
Yeah.
But because it's my pet deck, of course I would. It's the one I play the most. It's the one I have the most fun with. I love my combo deck. It's a ton of fun as well because Jund is important and Tarkir is important, but there's just something about this specific deck that I always will love.
I have a card here that I'm trying to like figure out the thing of for this for the Quandrix deck. So it's Ruxa, Patient Professor. It's the bear druid that looks dark.
Oh yes.
But
yes, I've seen this one.
I don't understand its effects. This is the one card that I've seen in Magic recently that I'm just like, I don't get what this does. So whenever Ruxa's Patient Professor enters the battlefield or attacks, return target creature with no abilities from your graveyard to your hand. So I'm guessing abilities are things like Death Touch and stuff, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
okay.
it's
not effects.
basically
It's anything that they do. So Menace, Lifelink, all that sort of thing. Got you.
Mm-hmm.
Creature you
any worded ability is not going to count for that. So it's just going to be stuff like, I can't remember what it is, but there's that one Ixalan dinosaur that's like 10/10 for like 11 mana with no abilities. So that's it's a vanilla creature. Grizzly Bears is a great example as well. One and a green for a 2/2 bear and nothing else. So
my nickname at school and for my wife is Bear, so part of me also was kind of like, could I build a bear commander deck that's just all bears, like owlbear,
there actually
wolfbear?
is a pretty sweet. I take in a lot of Magic the Gathering content. I watch a lot of people, and one of the groups I watch more than others is Loading Ready Run, and one of their members actually made a pretty sweet Ayula Queen Among Bears deck that he has named Bear Force 1, and that was actually a whole running joke throughout their comedy series that used to play on Magic's official channel. Friday nights, that's the one. And so yeah, if you've seen any of the Friday night series, they mentioned Bear Force 1 fairly often on there, and then when Ayula came out, Modern Horizons 1, he ended up actually building the deck and playing it on game nights. So that list is very, very cool. Seems like it's just a blast to just put a bunch of 2/2s for 2 out there, and they're all bears, of course. Yeah. He's got a couple shifters, but it's mostly all bears. And so yeah, bears is a very fun deck, and that's his pet deck more than anything.
Yeah.
Although, actually, no, that's not true. His pet deck is actually Tree Folks. He's talked about it extensively. This is Graham from Loading Ready Run. And his main deck that he's kept around for a long time is Sapling to Kolfanor, which is black and green and cares about like flipping cards off the top and losing life to the power, gaining life to the toughness. And Tree Folks, which are notorious for having thick butts, you just gain a ton of life and get a bunch of Tree Folk into your hand that you can just play more Tree Folks into. So
I like big trees and I cannot lie. Yeah, I get that. Like, and I think one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about this with you as well is because one of the things that I've really enjoyed about our conversation today is like how excited you get about things. Like I really appreciate that. So thank you. I know it's like early in the afternoon for you, so to get hype is not like easy, but like and that's one of the things I found with like Commander, a bit more than like Modern and Standard, is that like when you go and play Modern and Standard, it is a naturally combative environment. Like you are in to compete. Like, and what I've noticed with like the Commander content I've been consuming and talking to the Commander people on Twitter, like I talked about doing this, and like the Commander sort of sphere just went, and we're like, yeah, we'll talk to you about Commander. It's great, rah, rah, rah. And yeah, it's just the level of excitement, like watching people like see a card that they've never seen before and pick it up. Like, before it's even finished, like, and go, what is that? And then like talk about it, and like I think excitement is also something that plays into the pet deck thing. Like, you excited to play that deck. It's something that you want to get out of the sleeves.
Exactly.
You wanna show somebody, and you don't mind somebody picking up, because when you're playing like standard or modern, you're like, don't pick my cards up. I need them where they are. Like, don't stop that, because I'm still trying to like kick your ass right now. But like the excitement that Commander players have, and I think it feeds into this pet deck thing we're talking about, is just like so fun and so cool to have you guys all like take me in, teach me things, like talk to me about stuff, when to be honest, like, you could just like be like, well, you're a fucking noob, like, just stay in your lane, dude. Like, you play D&D, you talk about manga and stuff every now and then. My Instagram is basically a Bleach Brave Souls like pull list, like, but no, it's been really good, like, coming in and talking.
Commander is such a good format because yes, it's fun to win, yes, it sucks to lose, but at the same time, I often don't give a shit if I lose. I could be eliminated first, and I will have a great fucking time because I got to see cool people do cool shit with cool cards. So being able to see just crazy stuff that people do with Commander is why I love this format so much, and why it's the main format that I play. I used to play... I wasn't really competitive grinder. During the time when I was like playing Modern and Standard and that sort of thing, I was like 15. I couldn't afford like a proper Modern deck, but now I can if I want to, but I choose not to. I just choose to play Commander and just have fun.
Yeah.
And enjoy my time. Like, yes, I'm getting into CDH, but it's still going to be the same thing. Yes, I'm going to play to have fun. Yes, I won't really care if I win, but I'll try a little bit harder because everyone else at the table will be trying to win as hard as possible. But if I don't win, I don't feel like I'm going to be too upset about it, because at the end of the day, it's Commander, and I get to see cool people do cool stuff with cool cards.
Yeah.
And that's just what Commander is to me. It's just a fun time with great people.
The last thing before on this topic, and then we'll start wrapping up, is like, do you think that as a format, Commander lends itself to building a pet deck more than, say, Standard and Modern?
I would say absolutely yes, it does. I think Commander is the healthiest format for pet decks and that sort of thing, because let's say you've got one card that's your pet card and you want to build a whole deck around it, and then it rotates out and it's not viable for Legacy or Vintage or Modern, and you still love that card and want to build around it. That sucks. But Commander, as long as it doesn't get hit by the rules committee, won't really have that. It's just going to be something you can always play. And like, yeah, it'll be janky and low power, but it's still fun. And that's what's important. You don't have to be playing the top tier decks all the time and sideboard in everything that can counteract everything else everyone is playing at top tier, because there is no sideboard. You put in stuff that you think will deal with something generic you'll see if you really give a shit about interaction that much, which that's a whole completely different discussion if you want to care about interaction or that sort of thing. But yeah, you just play what you want, build what you want, and people will be like, cool, I'll play against you. That's awesome. That's what I love about Commander, and that's why pet decks are such a healthy thing for Commander, in my opinion.
Yeah,
and why they thrive here more than any other format.
Yeah, because there's so much variance as well. Like, because you're only allowed one of every card. Like, I'm not stacking my deck for the Reckless Storm Seekers for my werewolves because I want haste, and I'm going... Right, I get one of those, but okay, there's this cool werewolf that I didn't even realise is in Crimson Vow. I'll take that. Like, what, there's a ramp werewolf? Since when? And you just you even discover new cards for your pet decks that you're like, oh shit, like, this would have been really helpful. Like, but it's kind of like the 101st card. Like, it's always something that gets cut. So yeah, I think that's really healthy and really good.
There's only two formats that I can think of that pet decks and pet cards and that sort of thing would have any prevalence. And that's Cube Draft, building one specifically off of a plane or block or set that you like, and Canadian Highlander, because like Commander, it's a 100-card singleton, it's non-rotating, and yes, there are meta decks, yes, there are good strategies, but at the same time, you're just building a fun 100-card pile to play one-on-one with people, And Canadian Highlander is something that I've been wanting to get into, but sadly it's not very big where I'm from. So I just enjoy the content that I see of it online and hopefully wish to be able to play it. But at the same time, yeah, I think it's possibly one of the closest formats you can get to having pet decks besides Commander and Cube Draft. But other than that, it's just not open anywhere else but here.
Yeah. So, yeah, that has been our talk about pet decks. And remember to pet your pet decks. Make sure that you love them, cherish them, hold them close to your heart at night. And yeah, and love them. As always, we're going to start with the sign-offs from our guests first. Lunch, tell us where we can find you, what your plans are, etc., etc. Just tell us everything.
Yeah, so as we are right now, tail end of July, I am still streaming on Twitch, and I'm going to be streaming for the foreseeable future. Right now, I'm doing a first run of Ocarina of Time. I actually never played it, despite being a massive Zelda fan growing up.
Sorry, what? Stop. What? You've never played Ocarina?
I had an NES and then went straight to a GameCube. I have a I never had an N64, so I didn't get a chance to. But I'm playing it now, and it's a blast.
Oh, it's so good.
They did the port, and I missed out on that, and on the DS port.
My wife got me the DS port, and like I do pick it up every now and then. Like I've got such good muscle memory of the Deku Tree that I genuinely did it in 3 minutes without speedrunning. Nice. Like, because I'm just like, I just did it. I was like, yeah. And then as I get further into the game, I'm like, oh, I have no idea how this works anymore.
Going through my first playthrough of Ocarina of Time on my chill days, which are Wednesday nights at present. And then Tuesday nights are my Elden Ring streams. I'm finishing up my second playthrough right now, and actually have just started a horns-only genocide run. I shifted over some weapons from another account onto my new character, and I'm killing every single NPC I can, every single boss that I can. I'm specifically just limiting it to the necessary bosses, as well as any of the remembrance bosses, if there's any knowledge of Elden Ring fans in the comments and that sort of thing. So that's what I'm doing for that one. And then I'm also playing Stray, because that's what's hot right now, and then Commander on Saturday nights. So I'm going to be recording that streaming that shortly after we're done here, getting that set up. And yeah, you can find me all of that and more on twitch.tv/lunchbox_13. Again, that's LUNCHB0X_13. And yeah, I'm just small little channel doing my thing, having fun. Happy to have people come and just chill. I don't talk too much when I'm on stream. I just kind of interact with chat when it's there and just let the ambiance of the game speak for itself. I'm a massive music fan as well, so I love soundtracks of video games and stuff. So yeah, come hang out there. And then I've got my TikTok and my Twitter. That's going to be Lockman13 for both of those. LAUCHMIN 13. It's my middle name extended a little bit. It's just a username that I've had for a long time before I shifted over to going by Lunchbox. So yeah, you can find me there. I'm sure on the cover of the photo, my card is going to have the link down there. But yeah, I'm happy to hang out with people on Twitch and just vibe and play some fun video games.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for coming on Lunchbox. I really appreciate it.
It's been a blast.
It's been a blast, and hopefully I'm going to see how I feel after doing this, and if I've got anything else to do, and I may come hang out for Commander. Maybe we'll watch what's going on if you've got a pod going, and then if I can jump in, I'll ask if you're about. But all in all, yeah, thank you so much for coming on. We're doing the Pod of Many Things Command Fest, which is basically me learning and getting loads of people, whether they're big, small, like creators, on the podcast talking about Commander, EDH, whatever you want to call it, CEDH, and just helping me learn as I go through and get ready to dive in and maybe stream some pods of my own and stuff like that.
I appreciate the opportunity you've given me. It's been a blast meeting you and other folks that are going to be on the podcast. There's some crazy big names on here like J-Ro and Joe Cherries and that sort of thing. So I really appreciate the opportunity to just give a small creator like me be able to come on here and just talk about the format that I like. So really grateful for that.
You're very welcome. And so to sign off, as always, as you can see, is the flavor text of my little overlay card. I want you to know, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever you are, I hope you're safe, I hope you're well, and I hope you're having a fantastic time playing games, reading manga, reading comic books, just doing something you love with the people you love in your life. Okay? Do that for me, and I'll see you soon. Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye, everybody.